What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the College Basketball Bracket Science Podcast. I'm Brandon Jadich. I am your host for today. As always, we got a busy show today. We got a lot to talk about. I know I'm a week late. I wanted to wait until the end of that NBA draft craziness, all the people coming back, all the players staying in the draft. Wanted to wait until about Friday to do a podcast, and then just kind of got held up with stuff. So we're back on schedule, just moving everything a week back. Here we are. By the time you're hearing this, it'll be Tuesday, June 4th. We know who's going to be in college basketball next year. We don't exactly know where everyone is going to land, but we know who's going to be in college basketball, which is why we're doing a show today of some of the All-American teams, some of the early predictions. I know it's way too early, and before I get into it, just know there's not going to be very many hot takes. It's just kind of who's proven themselves in college basketball. Then we're going to do all conference teams as well for every Power 5 conference. We're going to first, of course, start with just some of the notable movements that went on. We're going to talk about who stayed, who's going. And then we are going to talk about who has the best chance of being the player of the year, the Wooden Award preseason. Without Zach Edey, God loves Zach Edey. It was incredible for college basketball. He was an incredible two-time Wooden Award winner. But now it's open. It's up for grabs. It was Zach Edey. It was always going to be Zach Edey last year. Now it's up for grabs. Who will end up being the player of the year? We'll talk about some of those potential candidates. Before we dive into the poll question, just want to give a quick, I didn't know him, but it was news, and it was sad news. Quick rest in peace to Bill Walton. Bill Walton passed away at the age of 71, just too young, 71. He was a great guy. I know my generation knows him as the announcer, but he was a terrific basketball player. Way back in the day, heard lots of stories from family members about him and just the legacy he left behind. Great guy, wanted to bring happiness to the world, and at the age of 71, just that surprising. No one really knew he was sick, but that's how he wanted it. He didn't want to be a burden on anyone, it seems. At the age of 71, so thoughts and prayers with his friends and family. It's tough. It's tough thing. I'm not going to act like I knew him that well, but still something you got to mention. It's sad news, big college basketball news. So once again, thoughts with his friends and family. All right, let's dive into the show. We're going to start the show with a poll. Who is your preseason player of the year? I'm curious to know. The three options as of right now are Mark Sears, RJ Davis, and Hunter Dickinson, and then other. If you pick other, let me know who you think. Maybe you think it might be Jonai Broom. Maybe you might think it's Cooper Flagg. You let me know. I'm curious to hear. I think the three front runners right now are RJ Davis, Mark Sears, and Hunter Dickinson. But I'm curious to hear. Let me know. Let me know what everyone thinks. All right, so let's start. Before we dive in all the way to the show, let's talk about our upcoming schedule for podcasts. Now, I got it listed, pulled up for those on YouTube. So if you want to catch out all of these podcasts, I got a pretty good schedule here of stuff all the way up until the all the way up until the regular season. We're going to start on every Tuesday. Every Tuesday, that's pretty much what we're doing, except for the NBA draft recap. That's going to be on a Friday because the draft is Wednesday, Thursday. So we want to. I'm not an NBA guy, but I just want to talk about. I mean, obviously, there are big college basketball names in there. We're going to talk about some of the some of those guys and how they're looking moving forward. It's always cool to see them move on to the next level. But next week, we're going to do our way too early rankings. Like I said, we know who's going to be in college basketball. We should have a better understanding of the rosters. I mean, we've almost got a full understanding of what every roster is going to look like. So next Tuesday is going to be our way too early rankings. I'm going to spend a lot of time. I'm going to rank every single Power 5 team. Following week after that's going to be the transfer portal recap by the 18th. Just about everyone should be in. I would think there might be a few stragglers still out there, but then that next Friday will be the NBA draft recap. It'll probably release on Saturday. Actually, I'll record it on Friday. Go Saturday. It's just tentative schedule for those who can see it on YouTube. Then we'll do the 2023-24 recap of last year's season. That will be done on the 9th, July 9th, excuse me. Then we're going to do something stupid, and we're going to do some bracketology. We're going to just lay out the 64 field. We're just curious to see how wrong I will be. That'll be on the 16th. And then we're going to start our previews. We're going to do just alphabetical order, ACC, Big 12, Big East, Big 10, SEC. Every Tuesday talking about last season, going into this season, what has changed. Every single roster, we're going to talk about every roster during those and really get in depth. Then we're going to do a roster recap. Rosters for every single Power 5 team. And then we're going to get into the preseason show. That's going to be all predictions, everything, whatever we want to talk about. I mean, that's going to be the big show. That's going to be everything. Then we're going to do our best bets preseason. Everyone seemed to like the best bets idea, so we're going to do that. Best bets preseason, some of the future bets. We'll be able to know what some of the odds are to win specific teams to win their conference. We're going to lay out some of the best bets that you might want to consider using for your future bets on FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever you want, Fanatics, ESPN Bet, some of the best bets. All right, now let's dive in straight into the show. We got to talk about some of the notable movements. As I mentioned, it's been 2 weeks, so there's been quite a few things going on. The deadline was last Friday at 11:59 p.m. I think, maybe Thursday, something. I got the dates mixed up. But some of the big news. Let's label these out. We're going to go through the players that withdrew from the draft and returning to their previous school. We got 11 of those. We got 6 players who are staying in the NBA draft that are worth noting. We've got 7 that withdrew from the NBA draft and entered the portal. Now, they might have entered the portal way before, and then it's just news that they ended up withdrawing from the draft. Then we have 5 transfers to talk about, and then we just have a few other notable news to discuss, including N'Faly Dante, Jordan Dingle, Chris Ledlum. I'm sure you've heard a little bit about those news, but we'll dive into that a little bit. So let's start. Withdrew from the draft and will return to their previous school. Couple of big ones, starting with Mark Sears withdrawing from the draft and back to Alabama. One of those guys I mentioned in our poll that may be the preseason Wooden Award favorite. Mark Sears going to be incredibly important for this Alabama team that is absolutely loaded right now. Caleb Love also withdrew from the draft and is going back to Arizona. Arizona also with a pretty stacked lineup. Will Caleb Love help? Will Caleb Love hurt? He was the final Pac-12 player of the year last year. We'll see. Caleb Love experience. It's always fun. Alex Caravan withdrew from the draft and is coming back to UConn. Really helps to get some veteran presence on that team. Alex Caravan, two-time national champion, obviously. Hunter Salas withdrew from the draft, returning to Wake Forest. I didn't think this was going to happen. I quite frankly thought that Hunter Salas was going to end up in the NBA, but wants to come back. I heard Wake Forest offered him quite a bag, so good for Hunter Salas. Good financial future there. Walter Clayton Jr. withdrew from the draft and is coming back to Florida. Florida, very good roster this year as well. Eric Dickinson withdrew from the draft and is coming back to Villanova. Just about the only person that wants to play for Villanova, it seems. Pretty ugly roster Kyle Neptune has got over there. But Eric Dickinson will be their best player. He was their best player last year, kind of their only great piece last year. But he is important nevertheless. Peyton Sanford withdrew from the draft, coming back to Iowa. Another kind of surprising one. Thought he might stay in the draft just because of the weak draft class, and he is a scorer, let me tell you. But he'll be back at Iowa, good for college basketball. Chase Hunter withdrew from the draft, coming back to Clemson. Namari Burnett withdrew from the draft, coming back to Michigan. Xavion Lee, you might not know that name. He's Princeton's guard. He is a 6'7" athletic guard. He's been a pro prospect for a long time, but he's coming back to Princeton. This will really help their case to win the Ivy League. Neat Clifford withdrew from the draft, coming back to Colorado State. And then Matthew Morrell withdrew from the draft, coming back to Ole Miss. Chris Beard put together quite a good roster so far this year. They'll be fun to watch. Fun to watch next year. They might be in the NCAA tournament. Right now, I would probably have them in. A couple notable names staying in the draft. Deron Holmes from Dayton will not be returning. This one seemed 50-50, probably more leaning towards that he would stay in the draft. He ended up staying in the draft. I've seen a lot of mock projections in him late first round, early second round. Johnny Furphy, same thing. Seemed like he was gone for quite a while, but there were some rumors he'd come back. But, I mean, Kansas replaced him. They kind of figured he was gone. And he is late first round probably. David Jones was the surprising one. Now, not once you look at his skill set, you're like, yeah, he's probably an NBA player. But it just seemed like he was leaning towards coming back. He is not. He's staying in the NBA draft. Kind of, this really hurts Memphis's chance. But some Memphis fans were thinking they're a top 15 team. I mean, I'll just leave it at that. KJ Simpson staying in the draft from Colorado. Thought he might come back, but I think KJ Simpson, here's my hot take of the NBA draft. KJ Simpson is going to be one of the better players from this class. I think his game's going to translate well. Come back to this one. It is a freezing cold take in a couple years, but I have faith in KJ Simpson. I think his game will translate. Cam Christie from Minnesota staying in the draft, along with Jalen Wells from Washington State also staying in the draft. So those are some of the big names that will not be back in college basketball next year. Really kind of hurts to lose. I mean, Johnny Furphy just kind of popped up out of nowhere. Cam Christie, Jalen Wells, I mean, they're great players, don't get me wrong, but they were just less known because they were at Minnesota, Washington State. The David Jones, Deron Holmes, and KJ Simpson ones, it kind of hurts to lose them for college basketball, but I think I would trade getting rid of them and keeping the Mark Sears, Caleb Love, Alex Caravan, Hunter Salas, Walter Clayton. It's good for college basketball. It was overall good news for our sport. That's kind of the beauties of NIL. I mean, Mark Sears can come back and make a ton of money in college basketball instead of going to the NBA and having a two-way contract where he's hovering back and forth. I mean, he can set up his financial future for a incredibly long time by making over $1 million to come back and play at Alabama. That's fun. All right, now these next 7 players withdrew from the draft and entered the portal or had already entered the portal. Starting with JT Toppin. JT Toppin had already entered the portal. He was it looked like he had a really great draft combine showing, so we thought, I mean, it was close whether he came back. He did end up coming back. He was at New Mexico last year, transfers to Texas Tech. Grant McCaslin has put together a sneaky, really good team in the Big 12. Jackson Robinson withdrew very late, didn't even announce it. Well, I mean, obviously he had the paperwork filled out before the deadline, didn't come out with a public announcement until the next day. He did withdraw from the draft and is going to follow his coach Mark Pope to Kentucky, transferring from BYU to Kentucky. Jameer Watkins withdrew from the draft. Good. I'm glad to see him coming back because I think he's going to be a star somewhere. I'm leaning towards Kansas State. He cut his list down to like 6, like Oregon's on there, Michigan's on there. I think Kansas State was on that list. He even kept Florida State on there. I think he's going to end up at Kansas State. He just seems like kind of a perfect fit to kind of replace Arthur Kaluma, who is also on this list, withdrew from the draft in the transfer portal. But I think Jameer Watkins is going to make a dramatic impact somewhere. Coleman Hawkins also withdrew from the draft. I said, hopefully you didn't watch my podcast. Well, hopefully you did, but hopefully you didn't take it to heart. Like 2 or 3 episodes ago where I said, hey, I would bet on North Carolina to win the ACC if you have a market out there, maybe even the national championship, because I think I said 95% sure that Coleman Hawkins was going to North Carolina. Yeah, that was a bad take. Early in the year. I apologize. I don't think I heard it's Arkansas now. I heard they're the front runner. I heard North Carolina's still kind of in there, but I heard North Carolina just doesn't really want him because they picked up a guy from Vanderbilt named Van Lubin. I would still go after Coleman Hawkins, but I heard Coleman Hawkins is like wanting an absolute bag, like north of, like, he wants like who'd he compare it to? Great Osabar. He said he wants like a $1.52 million NIL. Like, Coleman Hawkins is good, but he was the 3rd best player on his team last year. That's a lot of money. Ugana Onyenso withdrew from the draft. Good news. I mean, he was certain that he was going to end up in the NBA draft, and I think the scouts just basically told him, hey, we need to see you do more in college. So he's coming back. Arkansas, maybe. North Carolina, maybe. I'm curious to see about North Carolina. They're kind of the one that's what's Hubert Davis doing over there. They need a big man, yet they don't. They kind of seem like they have their roster filled. We'll see if they pick up one of these guys. Trayvon Brazile also withdrew from the NBA draft. He'll be back to transfer from Arkansas. We'll see where he'll end up. I heard North Carolina as well. North Carolina, I mean, these last 3 big guys, Coleman Hawkins, Onyenso, Trayvon Brazile, they need that big, lengthy guy. I've even heard rumors he might come back to Arkansas. It seems like a pretty good fit. Or even, maybe USC, follow Eric Musselman over there. Now, there were 5 transfers that we want to talk about. We already talked about Van Lubin going to North Carolina from Vanderbilt. I don't know that much about him. I mean, he was at Vanderbilt last year. We'll see. North Carolina seems really excited about him, so we'll see. Chaz Lanier going to Tennessee from North Florida, one of the premier scorers, averaged almost 20 a game last year, like 44% from 3. He's going to Tennessee. He's not going to replace Dalton Knecht. I know what every Tennessee fan is thinking, but it does help. The additions of Chaz Lanier, Darlin Stone-Dubar, it helps. It helps replace that scoring from that awesome Dalton Knecht last year. DJ Wagner did commit to Arkansas. We all expected this. We knew he was going to go there. DJ Wagner underperformed last year, but he is a true point guard. We'll see what he can do at Arkansas. Miles Kelly from Georgia Tech. He was Georgia Tech's leading scorer last year, going to Auburn. This is a great addition for Bruce Pearl. I think Miles Kelly was one of the more underappreciated guys in the transfer portal this year in terms of rankings. I was high on him. I'm glad to see him going to Auburn. I think that's a great fit. I think he's going to kind of be what they thought Aiden Holloway was going to be last year, but didn't really pan out to be. I think Miles Kelly's going to be that guy. And then, Enoch Baoki going to Villanova from Fresno State. Yeah, not the type of Villanova transfer we're used to seeing, but got some size. We'll see. I'm not going to act like I know that much about him. So, Enoch Baoki, it's a tough name to pronounce. Enoch Baoki and Eric Dickinson coming back to Villanova. I mean, kind of fill the holes, but still that roster's just not good. The other notable news, it all started with Jordan Dingle and Chris Ledlum being denied eligibility at St. John's. They started in the Ivy League. The Ivy League canceled their 2020 season because of COVID, and then just a whole spiral of events. Everyone gave the 2020 guys a free year, but they thought they deserved another year because a lot of teams played a significant amount of games during that 2020 season, and the Ivy League didn't. That got denied. They didn't really have much of a case. The big one was N'Faly Dante, Oregon's big guy, big center, one of the best centers in college basketball last year when he was healthy, was also denied eligibility. Now, he was one of those just injury-prone studs where it's like you need him in your lineup. Oregon needed him. He came back last year. Obviously, they won the Pac-12. They won the last ever Pac-12. They beat South Carolina. They were a popular pick to go far in the NCAA tournament. They ended up barely getting beat by Creighton in that incredible game in the round of 32. But he was denied another year of eligibility just because he thought that maybe all these injuries, they would have a medical waiver sort of thing for him. It got denied. I think he's going to take it to court, and I quite frankly have no clue about the judicial system if he has any sort of case. I've kind of heard on Twitter that he doesn't have much of a case, but I don't know. College bad. Jay Billis seems to think otherwise. Jay Billis really thinks that N'Faly Dante should be back at Oregon next year, but we'll see. Max Shulga decommitted from Villanova. Just Villanova's type of thing that happens anymore under Kyle Neptune. He committed from VCU, and then just basically it seems like Villanova just kind of got outbid, and VCU just kept him. Max Shulga going back to VCU, premier scorer, great player. I don't even have any thoughts about Villanova anymore. They just must have no money. Jay Wright had people throwing money at him because he was incredible, and Kyle Neptune was never going to be Jay Wright, but he shouldn't be this bad. He should not be this bad. Losing commits, they used to produce a winning culture. Max Shulga might take a little bit of a pay decrease to go to Villanova and into a winning culture, a team that seemed to be in the Final Four regularly. Know how UConn feels right now where they're on top of the world, 2 straight national championships. That's what Villanova was just a couple years ago. They won in 2016 and 2018. That's 2 and 3 years. What happened? I'll tell you what happened. Switching coaches, I get it, but man, might be time to look in a new direction if you're Villanova. And then Hosan Sinan decommitted from Arizona once the news, obviously he must have caught wind of the Caleb Love thing and goes to Arizona State, rival right down the street, Bobby Hurley. I'd probably do the same thing. Caleb Love's going to eat up all those minutes and check up 35-footers and make a lot of them. So why stay there? You're going to be a backup. I think it's a good move to go to Arizona State. Arizona State, sneaky decent roster. That's all the news we needed to talk about. That's everything that happened in this past week. Now we're going to dive into some of the highlights of the show. We're going to start with the all-conference teams, and then we're going to do the all-American teams. It's going to be more of, I'm going to tell you my player of the year in all the Power 5 conferences, and then that's basically what the all-American team is. But I also did second team, third team all-Americans. Now these, bear in mind, these are very generic. These aren't these are basically just the big names. There might be a few hot takes in here, but you got to think there's going to be the like Dawson Garcia last year in the Big Ten just kind of came out of nowhere and had a great season. There's going to be guys like that. There might be the random guy at Virginia Tech that averages 20 a game and ends up on this list. These are just what I'm going with as of right now, and it's basically just the bigger names, but it's a little bit of a layout of some of the players to look out for in these specific conferences. So let's start in the ACC. It's got to be RJ Davis. RJ Davis will without a doubt be the ACC preseason player of the year. I have him marked on here. I have the graphic pulled up on YouTube. Player of the year for the ACC, 100%. I think it's RJ Davis. I also have Isaac McNeely. This is a little bit of a hotter take Now, the ACC, I started off with two guys on here where you're like, yeah, I don't know if they'll be on there. I'm sticking with Isaac McNeely from Virginia. I think he's going to pop off this year. He was the lone bright spot in a horrible Virginia offense last year. They built pieces around him, and I think it's going to free him up. I'm good. I'm going with Isaac McNeely. I don't know if he'll end up on the first team, but this is like one of those, like you might find someone from Georgia Tech, from anywhere that ends up on this list. But going with Isaac McNeely right now, I just have that feeling that he's going to break out this year, have that Kyle Guy-like season. Do have Hunter Salas also on the first team. I think this is like a no-brainer. I think Hunter Salas is going to be great. He was great last year, pro prospect, works hard. I think he's going to be on this list. I did include Cooper Flagg on this list. Might be a little bit of a popularity thing. I quite frankly don't know that much about Cooper Flagg. I mean, I've seen his highlights, obviously, but he's great. He's great. He's going to be the leader on this Duke team. I think that's the thing. They're not going to leave Duke's best player off the list, especially. I mean, I know some people have mixed feelings about Cooper Flagg, but do have him on this list. I think he's going to be there because the ACC was one of the more difficult ones to kind of pick. I mean, I'll talk about it here in a second. The last name I do have is Maxime Reynaud from Stanford, the new team Stanford in the ACC. Remember, I think he's going to pop off this year. He's terrific. They now got Kyle Smith there. He's going to free him up even more. I think Maxime Reynaud is going to definitely be on an all conference ACC team. Couple players I considered. Now you might be thinking, yeah, Isaac McNeely on this list, really Maxime Reynaud, but listen to the guys that I only really even considered. Tyrese Proctor, who quite frankly, I know he battled injuries last year, but was so disappointing last year. He was not that good last year whatsoever. Now you see the talent is there, but how many goose eggs did he lay last year? I did keep him on the highly considered because of his upside. He's got talent, no doubt about it, but I couldn't put him on there even ahead of McNeely. McNeely was a much better player last year. Ian Shiflin from Clemson. They're losing P.J. Hall. He's looking to step into a bigger role. Now, I love the guy. He's a hustler, but he's not the most talented player in the world. Now, he is that glue piece, but he's just like it's hard to, like, there's a big difference between P.J. Hall and Ian Shiflin. Like, Ian Shiflin's just that rebounder, that tough, annoying guy down low, but he's not going to get you 18 points, 9 rebounds. You know what I mean? He's not going to do that like P.J. Hall was doing. He's very important. I did put him on the highly considered, but I don't think it's enough stat-wise to get on the first team. Nigel Pack, the last one from Miami. Another one of those, it's like does the ACC have that great of players? Like outside of R.J. Davis, Hunter Salas, Cooper Flagg? I don't know. There's always going to be someone that pops off. As mentioned, I'm going to keep repeating that so I don't look like such an idiot in a couple months. But Nigel Pack, iffy. I mean, he knocks down a ton of shots. He's going to have a bigger piece this year. Him and Jalil Bethia in the backcourt should be good. I think Miami, I mean, they can't be much worse than they were last year. They were the 14 seed, or 14 seed in the ACC, something like that. Still just horrible. They were coming off a Final Four run. They returned a lot of players. That's what I got for the ACC. Let's move into the Big 12. Caleb Love is going to start us off. Caleb Love will probably attempt 16 shots a game, so I think you got to put him on there. I mean, he's the reigning Pac-12 player of the year. He's a good basketball player. Like, he's a pro prospect. Don't get me wrong. He's a good basketball player. I mean, he's going to be part of a fun offense. He's going to be part of Arizona, especially fun for him when he can basically just fire up whatever he wants. But the points per game will be there. Tamin Lipsey also coming in, the leader of that Iowa State team. Iowa State brought back just about everyone. Tamin Lipsey's just a winner. He's just a great piece. He's kind of that Jamal Shed that Houston had last year. Tamin Lipsey looking to take Iowa State back to a very high seed this year. I also put on L.J. Cryer from Houston. Last year it was Shed. This year it's going to be Cryer with Shed gone. I think Cryer, I mean, he's one of those guys where he kind of shoots, if you're watching on YouTube, kind of shoots from the side over here. Now, I know it's backwards because it's inverted, and he's a righty, but he shoots from the side over here, but every time you see it, it's just pure. It's just incredibly pure. Kind of that Lonzo Ball. Remember how he was way over here? L.J. Cryer just from here. Perfect rotation, great shooter. One of those who makes the three-point line look like it's like 17 feet away. Just a pure, effortless shot. I think L.J. Cryer is going to pop off this year. Norchad Omier at Baylor. Yes, Norchad Omier is at Baylor. Averaged a double-double the last 2 seasons. I think it's without a doubt a tremendous pickup. One of my favorite pickups of the offseason. Probably top 5 for me. For Baylor, I think he's going to be massive this year. Absolutely massive. Norchad Omier, I think he is without a doubt going to be first team. And then Hunter Dickinson, it's got to be Hunter Dickinson. I also have Hunter Dickinson Player of the Year, yet I was like, Hunter Dickinson's the obvious choice, don't get me wrong, but Norchad Omier was close for me. I think Norchad Omier at Baylor is like Hunter Dickinson will probably have better stats, but I almost like Norchad Omier as a basketball player better. Just Hunter Dickinson, I don't know. But I think it's going to be Hunter Dickinson Player of the Year. I mean, he'll be top 3 favorite for the Wooden Award next year. A couple guys highly considered. I mean, this is obviously an incredibly talented Big 12. I mean, you got 5 teams that will be preseason top 10 most likely with Kansas, Houston, Baylor, Iowa State, Arizona. I love Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech should be a top 15 team as well. So be curious to see. I don't think they'll be ranked top 15 in the preseason, but they're my team to watch out for. So there's obviously a ton of talent. Few guys I considered AJ Storr. Now, AJ Storr will be on a lot of people's first team list. He's not my favorite. I'm sorry, AJ Storr. I think you are crazy talented, crazy athletic. I just need to see him fit in at Kansas first with this incredibly talented roster. Like last year at Wisconsin, he was just the guy to go to. Now he's going to be their second, probably leading scorer behind Hunter Dickinson. I don't know. He might step into that Kevin McCullough role and just take off. So this might be a cold take, but I'm curious to see. I've mentioned my thoughts about AJ Storr on this podcast before. We'll see. JT Toppin, also highly considered, coming off that incredible freshman year at New Mexico. Popped off in the NBA Combine. He's getting better. He's athletic. He's big. He's over at Texas Tech. He's going to be fun to watch. Did include Jeremy Roach from Baylor. I don't think he's going to end up here. I was kind of considering him, but like he was behind AJ. Like no way was I going to put him ahead of AJ Storr, Caleb Love, Tamin Lipsey, LJ Cryer. I couldn't do it. Trey Townsend from Arizona. This is one you're not going to hear very much of. The next two, honestly. Trey Townsend is going to, I think he's going to be the best mid-major to high-major guy. I think he is an absolute stud. He's got size. He's a big forward. I considered putting him on this list. I really did. I considered putting him above LJ Cryer. I couldn't do it. I can't do it. Just that's such a big jump, especially when you have Caleb Love running. Like what kind of numbers are you really going to put up? I love Trey Townsend though. I think he's incredible. I'm curious to see. Man, I hope Caleb Love just puts in some passing ability this year with Trey Townsend around you. I mean, this team could be really fun. They were really fun last year until Caleb Love shot him out of the Sweet 16 and just completely got outcoached in the Sweet 16. Finally, the last one I'm going to mention, you're not going to hear this one a lot. Dallin Hall. Dallin Hall was sneaky, really good last year for BYU. I think he was their most... Jackson Robinson was great. He was their second most important piece. With Jackson Robinson gone, him coming back to BYU, he's that veteran guy. I think he's going to have a 15-plus point per game kind of season this year. That's the Big 12. Caleb Love, Tamin Lipsey, LJ Cryer, Norchad Omier, Hunter Dickinson. That's what I got right now. Not very hot takes, I know. That's why I kind of threw in Trey Townsend and Dallin Hall. Kind of some unpopular guys that you won't hear much of. Moving into the Big East. The Big East starting with Kadari Richmond, who is not at Seton Hall. He is at St. John's. Kadari Richmond was the number one transfer on just about everyone's list. He's a triple-double machine. He's a stat-packing machine with him and Devin Smith in the backcourt. St. John's, He's not at Seton Hall. He's at St. John's. It's going to be scary. Kadari Richmond. Cam Jones from Marquette. Losing Tyler Kolek. Cam Jones. What if I were to tell you Cam Jones was their Marquette's leading scorer last year? It wasn't Oso Ighodaro. It wasn't Tyler Kolek. It was Cam Jones. He's really underappreciated. Without both of them this year, he's going to average a lot of points this year. I'm looking forward to watching Cam Jones. Alex Karaban also coming in first team. This one's just kind of a no-brainer. Alex Karaban, so important. He's going to be that veteran presence. He's going to be the leader this year. Bryce Hopkins from Providence coming in as our fourth Big East first team player. Bryce Hopkins, season was cut short last year. He's going to be back this year. He's losing Devin Carter, who was just absolutely phenomenal last year. Bryce Hopkins is going to step into that role of being their best player. I think he's gonna pop off. I hope he's back for the start of the season. I'm pretty sure he will be, but I'm really hopeful that he's going to have a full season to work with. And then finally, Ryan Kalkbrenner, who I also have as my player of the year. I don't have Caravan. I don't have Kadari Richmond or Cam Jones. I do have Ryan Kalkbrenner. He's losing Trey Alexander. He's losing Baylor Shireman. He's bringing in Pop Isaacs, which a lot of people loved the addition of Pop Isaacs, a lot of Creighton fans. I don't really love it. I think to win, they're going to have to run through Kalkbrenner, which I think they will. Greg McDermott's a terrific coach. I think they'll run through Kalkbrenner. I really hope they do because I think he's fantastic. I mean, this is a stat I should know. It's either 2 or 3 times reigning defensive player of the year. He's terrific. I think he'll be player of the year. Also considered, I did include Devin Smith. Kadari Richmond was kind of the obvious choice. I love Devin Smith. I think he's so good. He's so fast. We mentioned on the last podcast, Rick Pitino said that St. John's was laterally slow. They're not going to be laterally slow this year. Kadari Richmond, Devin Smith, going to be fun. Devin Smith, so fast. Watch out for Devin Smith. Zach Fremantle from Xavier, he is back. I'm excited to watch him. He should be healthy. I can't wait to watch Zach Fremantle. Watch out for him. He's kind of Ryan Kalkbrenner-like. They're very similar players. And then Eric Dickinson from Villanova, we mentioned him coming back, so I threw him on this list because Villanova might suck. Maybe they'll figure things out, but Eric Dickinson should be the bright piece there. All right, moving into the Big Ten. The Big Ten, this was probably the hardest one to do because there's so many good players. There's not that Zach Edey anymore. There's not even that RJ Davis. There's not that Ryan Kalkbrenner, quite frankly. Got to start with Braden Smith. I mean, Braden Smith was terrific last year, and not a lot of people knew that because of Zach Edey, but Braden Smith had a terrific year. I did include Dylan Harper. I love Dylan Harper from Rutgers. He's the freshman coming in. I mean, I'm a coin flip on who I like, Dylan Harper or Ace Bailey more, but I needed another guard in this one, quite frankly, so I ended up going with Harper. I think he's going to have a great year. They're going to rely on the freshmen. They're going to rely on Harper and Ace Bailey. We'll see. Peyton Sanford from Iowa, he'll average at least 17 points per game this year. Pure shooter. Iowa's bright spot last year. Iowa losing McCaffrey, not Coach McCaffrey, Kid McCaffrey, Patrick McCaffrey. Peyton Sanford going to step into even a bigger role if that's even possible. Also with the loss of why am I blanking? What was their point? Tony Perkins. Loss of him. That's gonna. I mean, he's going to be firing on all cylinders, and he makes them. Dawson Garcia, we mentioned him earlier. He just popped off last year out of nowhere from Minnesota, and he is not out of nowhere, but you know what I mean. Like he's incredible. Dawson Garcia, one of my favorite players. I almost put him as player of the year. I wanted to put him as player of the year, but I don't know if they can give it to Dawson Garcia. I don't know. I quite frankly don't know. Great Osabar, finally, from Washington. I did put him as player of the year, but it was a coin flip. I could see Peyton Sanford being player of the year, but they also always tend to lean towards the teams that are the best. So it could be a Braden Smith. That's why I'm saying this was the hardest one. Like, will Washington be a tournament team? Great Osabar. They brought in Zoom Diallo, the freshman. They also brought in DJ Davis. Will they be a tournament team? I don't know. I think if they're I think they're the best bet to be a tournament team out of them, Minnesota, and Iowa, who were kind of my 3 choices for player of the year. So that's why I ended up going with Great Osabar. But I don't know. This was a tough one. Highly considered. This was going to be my hot take. I ended up taking him off the list, but I was going to have him first team. Trey Kaufman-Renn from Purdue. I think he's going to be incredible. He was overshadowed last year by Zach Edey, obviously, as everyone is. His footwork is phenomenal. His size, he uses his strength to his advantage. I think Trey Kaufman-Renn is in for a big jump this year. Don't be surprised if he ends up being one of those guys for first team All Big Ten. I think he's going to be incredible. Jackson Shelstad from Oregon, second year, coming back, great shooter, great player, a lot of speed. He's going to be exciting to watch in the Big Ten this year. Oregon's one of those teams I'm curious to see just how everything goes. Obviously, the N'Faly Dante thing. If N'Faly Dante wins that appeal, and they have N'Faly Dante, Nate Biddle finally healthy, Jackson Shelstad, Kwame Evans back, that could be a fun team. We already mentioned Ace Bailey. I have Ace Bailey on this list. Could have easily been him or Dylan Harper, but I need another guard, so I kept him. I did put Umar Ballo on here. You'll notice, I'm sorry, Indiana fans, I'm finally getting to you. I didn't include any Indiana guys just because I don't know who's going to be their leading scorer. I quite frankly really do not know who's going to be their leading scorer, so I didn't include him. Umar Ballo was just the highest rated transfer, so I included him on this list. I think my favorite of their transfers is probably Kanan Carlisle. I love Miles Rice, don't get me wrong, I love his story, but I think just scoring ability, it's probably Kanan Carlisle. I don't know. I quite frankly don't know who's going to be their leading scorer. That's why I didn't add him. I definitely wasn't going to include Trey Galloway or even Mackenzie Mbako. I'm not as high on him as a lot of people, but they have so many options. That's a good thing. That's a good thing for Indiana fans. Have a ton of options. I did make it Umar Ballo, yet I do think Great Osabar is better than Umar Ballo, and I know that wasn't shown on some of the rankings. Some other rankings, Great Osabar, it was kind of 50-50 who had them higher. But I got to see it first. I got to see it. So if an Indiana player sneaks up on here, don't get me wrong. I wouldn't be surprised if Miles Rice ends up averaging 14 points per game. They just have so many options. They're so deep this year. They might have 6 guys average 10 points per game. Who knows? That'd be incredible. That's a coach's dream. But I had to keep him off this list just for that reason. But I did have to throw in Umar Ballo to potentially be included. Kobe Johnson transferring from USC to UCLA. UCLA kind of in the same boat. They have so many options. I don't know who to really include. I did also throw Dylan Andrews on this list. Dylan Andrews, Sebastian Mack could sneak up on there. Ade Mara, I know that's probably a horrible take, but I have a feeling, I mean, he'll probably come off the bench to start. I have a feeling he's just going to be, I don't know. I might take that back because I think that takes a little bit too hot. I think he's going to be good. I don't think he's going to be first, second, third team, all Big Ten good. But just like Indiana, they got so many options. And then Bryce Williams, finally, from Nebraska. Losing Rank Mask hurts. Losing Kisei Tominaga hurts. Bryce Williams should step into the role of being that guy. Also, had to include him on the list. A lot of players we talked about in the Big Ten. I had to mention all of them just because I mentioned there's so many good players, just no player that like stands out as, yeah, they're the clear-cut favorite, like the Hunter Dickinson, like the RJ Davis, like the Mark Sears, who we'll talk about next in the SEC. He's an obvious first-team choice. He's also my player of the year in this conference, without a doubt. Never even crossed my mind. As soon as I typed in Mark Sears, I'm like, type player of the year, 100%. Wade Taylor, also coming in from Texas A&M. We'll see. He's kind of that Caleb Love, like just huck up a ton of shots and average a lot of points. He did not have a great shooting year last year, but A&M was good. A&M almost beat Houston in the second round. Remember, A&M, a lot of people didn't think they just belonged in the tournament. They almost beat the number 2 overall seed. So pretty good stuff for them. They should be great again this year. John L. Davis coming in third, transferring to Arkansas. I love John L. Davis. I've been on the John L. Davis since the beginning of last year. I think he is a terrific scorer, smooth shooter, kind of like L.J. Cryer, makes the three-point line look shorter than it is. Great player. Looking forward to him at Arkansas this year. Did include a fourth guard in this one. I included Walter Clayton Jr. Had to throw him in there just because these guards, wow, the guard play in the SEC is as good as you'll find in a very long time in any conference. Mark Sears, Wade Taylor, John L. Davis, Walter Clayton Jr. Man, all these guys are terrific. And then finally rounding it out, I do have Jonai Broom from Auburn. I'm not as high on Jonai Broom as a lot of people. A lot of people think he's like he could be a preseason player of the year. I don't see it, but yeah, he's fine. He's a great player. Don't get me wrong. And then I did also want to include Cliff Omori. Cliff Omori, I was going back and forth on whether to put him in so there's 2 big guys instead of Walter Clayton, but I love Walter Clayton. Walter Clayton could replace John L. Davis. This is eventually what I ended up with. Had to mention Cliff Omori as well. I mean, he is a shot blocking machine. The offense might not be there as much because, Alabama's offense is ridiculous right now, ridiculously good. They're going to fire threes. Cliff Omori's going to rebound. He's going to block shots. This team is scary. Alabama's scary. Also included Zakai Ziegler from Tennessee, reigning SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Zakai Ziegler, Cliff Omori. If I had to guess, it'd probably be Cliff Omori. He's terrific defensively, but Zakai Ziegler right there can also score the ball. I also want to throw in Amari Williams from Kentucky. Yes, there is no Kentucky guys on there. Kind of in the same boat as who were we just talking about? As UCLA and Indiana. They're deep. They're deep. They might have 6 guys that average 10 points a game. Again, Amari Williams, Defensive Player of the Year in the CAA. He's also got that ability on the defensive end. I don't know if Brandon Garrison's going to start over him, Kentucky fans. Let me know if you think Brandon Garrison's going to start over him. I would start Amari Williams. I don't know. I've kind of heard from other sources it might be Brandon Garrison, but I don't know. I like Amari Williams better. I'm not going to lie. I think Amari Williams is going to be great. Also could throw Andrew Carr on this list. I didn't list him down, but Andrew Carr might. If I had to guess who's going to be their leading scorer, I'd probably say Andrew Carr. But Andrew Carr was not the best player on Wake Forest last year. Now I know they have Hunter Salas, but they weren't a tournament team, and I don't know. Curious to see. Kentucky up for grabs. And then Josh Hubbard from Mississippi State. He could easily end up on this first team list. Star freshman last year. Can knock down threes from 30 plus feet. He's incredible. I'm excited to watch Josh Hubbard this year from Mississippi State. All right, those are the Power 5 conferences. So now we're going to cut it down to first team All-American, second team All-American, third team All-American. Now, first team All-American, I'm basically just going to tell you right now, it's basically just the players of the year plus a few. I'm going to start with R.J. Davis. R.J. Davis on the first team All-American, yet I do not have him as my player of the year. Surprisingly, I do have Mark Sears as my player of the year and also on the first team All-American. I think this is his year. I think he's going to do it. I think it's going to be Alabama. I think it's going to be just like last year, Alabama and Kansas just kind of battling for that number 1 overall seed. Last year it was Purdue and UConn, and then Houston kind of snuck in the conversation. But I think it's going to be kind of the same thing this year. I'm taking Mark Sears as the player of the year. This is my hottest take, Wade Taylor on my first team All-American list. I think his shooting was down last year. He's going to work harder. He's got a better team around him this year. Don't think they're going to have to rely on him. I think his field goal and three-point percentage is going to go up. I think A&M's going to be better. They're going to be a top 5 seed. I'm taking Wade Taylor, first team All-American. Then the last two, Hunter Dickinson and Ryan Kalkbrenner, the two big guys. I'm in on Ryan Kalkbrenner. I love Ryan Kalkbrenner. I think he's going to have a massive year this year. Ryan Kalkbrenner, without a doubt. I filled it in, not even thinking. Him above Jonai Broom. Put it in, not a doubt. Second team, Caleb Love. I do have Caleb Love. He's going to get his shots up. He's going to get his points per game. He's good. He's a good player. Cam Jones and Alex Caravan. Yes, I am going to put Alex Caravan on second team, not first team. I could have put him in instead of Wade Taylor, and I'm not hating on anyone that does that. He's so important. Just had to throw in a hot take, right? Cam Jones, love him. Marquette, we already talked about him. Leading scorer last year, losing the two best players on the team who were not even the leading scorer. It was Cam Jones. I think he's going to be a second-team All-American. Then I already mentioned Norchad Omier. Love Norchad Omier's fit at Baylor. I think he's going to pop off. Jonai Broom, the final one. Already mentioned him a little bit. And then third team, I do have Kadari Richmond, John L. Davis, Hunter Salas. I threw in Cooper Flagg. I think you have to, right? He's got to be on one of these teams. And then Great Osabar. I'm excited to watch Great Osabar from Washington this year. Mountain West Player of the Year last year, 6-bid league. They're going to be great. He's going to be great this year following his coach, Danny Sprinkle, to Washington. First team, R.J. Davis, Mark Sears, Wade Taylor, Hunter Dickinson, Ryan Kalkbrenner. Mark Sears being the Player of the Year. Second team, Caleb Love, Cam Jones, Alex Caravan, Norchad Omier, Jonai Broom. Third team, Kadari Richmond, John L. Davis, Hunter Salas, Cooper Flagg, Great Osabar. I know, not a lot of hot takes. The first team is pretty obvious. I think the first four are R.J. Davis, Mark Sears, Hunter Dickinson, Kalkbrenner. I think the more popular pick will be throwing Alex Caravan in that first team, maybe even Jonai Broom, but that would have basically 3 centers in there. So I'm curious to see what things end up. This is where I stand right now. During our preseason show, I will update this list. I'll get into some of those, like I mentioned earlier, those Virginia Tech guys, those Georgia Tech guys, those, you never know who I don't even know who's in the Big Ten anymore. Who are the random teams in the Big Ten? I don't know. I can't think. Maybe if N'Faly Dante comes back. N'Faly Dante comes back to Oregon, he might end up on one of these lists if he's healthy. We'll see. Things are going to change. That's going to be in our preseason show. That's going to do it for us today. I'm going to post all these lists on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok. Go check them out at Bracket Science with 2 S's. Remember to hit the subscribe, hit the little bell to get notified whenever we post. We mentioned that layout of our of our podcast up at the beginning of the show. If you missed it, go check that out. We're going to post. Next week's going to be way too early, top 25. So we're going to get controversial. We're going to get hated on. Looking forward to it. Everyone have a great rest of their week. See you later.